Welcome back. On the 27th of July, a Capetonian Keith Boyd took first steps on a planned 11,200-kilometer journey running from Cape Town to Cairo in Egypt in a Guinness World Record attempt. The 57-year-old has now reached Johannesburg with a couple of thousand kilometers to go. The existing world record was set in 1998 and sits at 318 days. But Boyd hopes to complete the grueling journey in 280 days. The Capetonian is running for his NGO Rainbow Leaders, which aims to motivate young South Africans to vote, grow the economy and reduce unemployment, poverty and inequality. Keith Boyd joins us now to further tell us more about his daredevil journey. Keith, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and thank you so much for your time. How does one even begin to prepare for 11,200 kilometers of running?
Gosh, well, I'll tell you one thing is that I was told not to run 200 kilometers a week in training, which I ended up doing. Everybody said nobody, trains more than 130 kilometers a week, so just don't do 200. But I've now been running, north of 300 kilometers a week on some of the weeks. So it is amazing what the body can do. I'm amazed, if I'm honest with you. And, I'm not exactly in a very young body. It's, yeah.
Absolutely amazing. I mean, yesterday you were in Soweto. Where are you now currently?
So this evening I finished off my run in Centurion. I started in Lone Hill, ended up in Centurion. And tomorrow we'll run about 25 Ks further from Centurion. And we're headed towards Francistown, the shortest route we can find to Francistown, about 650 kilometers away.
This walk is for a purpose. Talk us through your NGO, Rainbow Leaders.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think in terms of if you were to try to make a social impact in South Africa, what could you do? And there are many things. You could start a soup kitchen. You could start a gender-based violence organization. You could start an organization that looks after civil rights. So there's just so many things that one could do. I think what has struck me is that the biggest issues in our country are unemployment, poverty, and inequality. Mm. And they are in a row. They are in a straight row of dominoes. If you're unemployed, you're almost likely to be in poverty, almost certain to be in poverty. And that poverty makes South Africa the most unequal society on the face of this planet now. We moved into number one position for both unemployment and for inequality. And you'll recall that BEE was aimed at reducing inequality. So we picked a fix to fix inequality, but we kind of shortcut all the important things that need to be done. What needs to be done is you need to grow the economy. So if we grow the economy, we'll have a lot more jobs. Right now, we have an economy that can support 40 million South Africans. We have an economy that's 2/3 the size we need it. We've only got 2/3 of people who want jobs, have jobs. So that gives you some idea. We need to grow for the next 29 years, we need to grow the economy 1.5% faster than population growth of 1.7% to get unemployment down to almost zero. Mm. And so it was a kind of average play where you were saying, if you want to make a change in the most South Africans' lives, let's build this economy. Let's find leadership that's really encourage youth to get engaged in choosing leaders who will be honest and will help us grow this economy.
And that's my next point. I mean, this is particularly targeted at youth in making sure that when we do tackle poverty, when we do tackle inequality, their voices are the ones that are at the forefront in choosing those leaders. Why do you believe we've got so many young people who are eligible voters but who choose not to vote, especially during a time like the elections that are coming up next year?
It's a good question, and I found some surprising answers in discussions with young people. Some not surprising and some quite surprising. I mean, the first thing is that the young people don't want a history lesson. I'm horrified to tell you that a lot of the young people don't know who Steve Biko is. They haven't heard of him. Now, I'm not saying that's a good thing at all. In fact, I think it's a bad thing. Mm. However, the young people are saying, look, we don't want to talk about the past. What we want is we want our leaders today to look after the taxpayers' money that we give them. And I think you'll find that if we can get them to realize that The only way they take their power is by voting. When we say Amandla aware to it, its power is ours. But the way we take the power, we don't need violence. We don't need riots. We don't need that thing. We've got a wonderful constitutional democracy. We've got the IEC that oversees elections and makes sure that they're fair and free. And all we've got to do is vote. We've got the perfect tool set and the perfect constitution. So I think getting through to the youngsters, when we speak to them, there's a very high conversion rate of people kind of swinging around and saying, actually, it's right, I should vote. If I don't vote, I don't count.
And it's very interesting there that you say that we need to have conversations. I mean, someone was saying just a week ago that our universities, when young people want to protest, are no longer places of ideas and debate. We've now turned it into violence. And we need to find platforms, especially for young people, to be able to express themselves in moving our country forward.
I think that's absolutely right. And that's the point we make to young people is that, voting isn't something you do every few years. I mean, you wouldn't employ somebody in your business. I mean, South Africa Incorporated is our business, Katlego. It belongs to you and me and all the people of this country, True. South Africa Incorporated. We appoint people by voting for them. We give them the jobs, and we pay their salaries, the taxes. Every time somebody gets in a taxi, there is tax in that fare because the taxi driver has to fill up the vehicle with petrol or diesel, and that's a substantial amount of that is tax, and repair their vehicle and pay VAT on repairs, etc. So everybody in this country is paying tax, and we pay the politicians and the leadership, and they should be doing what we've appointed them to do. We shouldn't go back in 5 years again and revisit this. We need to give them performance appraisals at least once a year. So I think what we're focusing on with young people is to say it's not just the act of voting, which is the most important one. It's then following up and letting the leaders know that we are going to hold them accountable to keep their promises.
It certainly is about that active citizenry. And in your active citizenry, already you've reached out to 140 schools. You're aiming for another 3,000. How do you believe that everyday South Africans could do little acts of ensuring that we all work towards inequality, we work towards the problems of unemployment being solved, as well as those of poverty?
Well, I think it's very simple, Katlego. Business, if you read Adam Smith's, The Wealth of Nations and The Invisible Hand, and you understand that socialism and capitalism are bedfellows. They belong together. They're yin and yang. They're partners for society. They're good partners. Capitalism brings innovation, it brings creativity, it brings enthusiasm, it lets people try to realize their dreams. That's what capitalism does. Of course, it must be properly regulated and it must be taxed. Now, those taxes then fund your social agenda. Your social agenda is pensions, medical, education, etc., the functioning of state. Now, capitalists will invest in South Africa if they trust that the leadership will provide them with functioning electrical, water systems, rail systems, port systems, road systems. Your transportation and manufacturing systems must be in place. Your rule of law must be effective. The problem we have is that we've got into this downward cycle. We see so many symptoms now, crime, gangsterism, drugs being one of those, gender-based violence on the increase being one of those. But that's related to poverty and the stresses of poverty. And that's related to the fact that the economy is not growing quick enough. And that is related to the fact that we don't have functioning transport systems. We have to take all the millies that we grow, we have to take all the goods from our factories, transport them to ports on trucks, because the rail system doesn't function anymore largely. And we have to do this on roads that are largely broken. And when the goods get to port, they cost more than 3 times the world average to get those goods onto a ship, and take almost 4 times as long, which renders a whole lot of manufacturers unviable as businesses. Those are existing manufacturers in this country. So I can tell you the new ones are not going to be falling over their feet to come to South Africa. Government's role is to fix those things. If they fix those things, the capitalists will bring the capital, and we will have the jobs that we need. We will have the economic growth and the jobs that we need.
Now, in raising your voice for those needs to be met, you are trying to break the Guinness World Record. As mentioned, you're already in Centurion. You're headed for Francistown in Botswana. And you want to break this record in 280 days. What's your strategy?
run some more. No, Katlego, I don't know. Every time I come up with a plan, I trip over my own feet, literally and figuratively. But no, look, I think the fact is I've spent my whole life working in Africa across different countries, a lot of that north of Limpopo. And I love it. I love the people. I love, the accents. I love the linguistics. I love the culture. That for me makes the journey more important than the destination, if you understand what I mean. So, if we get the world record, that's great. Then at least it means the South Africans got the world record, and it doesn't belong to a Brit who's had it for 25 years. If we don't get the record, but we raise the money for Rainbow Leaders, and we raise awareness, and we get focus on youth engagement in democracy, then I'll tick all the boxes. If we take 319 days to get to Cairo, but we succeed on the other fronts, it's an outstanding success. If we break the world record and fail on the Rainbow Leaders initiatives, then it's been a failed expedition, in my opinion.
And what legacy do you plan to leave behind with this?
Well, the South Africa I want to see in 29, 30 years' time is one where there's zero unemployment. I hope to live for another 30 years. I don't think I will, but I hope that I can. I hope that Rainbow Leaders can play a small part in just shifting us that 5, 6, 7, 8 degrees that we need to in terms of our trajectory. We just need to lift our economic growth up by an extra 1.5% a year, above the population growth of 1.7. So we're talking 3 to 3.5% economic growth per year. That is not difficult if leaders do their jobs. And I firmly believe youth are going to make the right decisions, not just in 2024, but beyond that. And Rainbow Leaders will play a role in that for the next 20 years.
Well, Keith, when the young people of this country are led by active voices such as yours, we certainly are getting somewhere. Thank you so much. We wish you all the best on your journey, and we hope to see you reaching Cairo sooner than later.
Thanks, Katlego.